Hey, what's going on, friends? Welcome to another episode of The Trevor Ohlsen Show, episode number 14 on Wednesday, November 2nd, 2020. You're probably hearing this on a different day. Oh, well, I'm your host, Trevor Ohlsen. How's everybody doing? Election day should have happened already. So hopefully the world has not, the United States rather, has not fallen into complete chaos one day after. So anyway, I've got a great show ahead for you guys today. Zach Ward, a very good friend of mine from college. We've stayed in touch for the last 5 years. He's a weightlifter. He's a musician. He's a smart, talented cat, and I'm very excited for him to be on the show, and I'm sure you guys are going to love it. All I will say is if you would like to reach out to the show, please do at thetrevorolsenshow@gmail.com. Send me your questions, your comments, your concerns, your news to thetrevorolsenshow@gmail.com. And if you'd like to gain exclusive Trevor Ohlsen content, head over to patreon.com/Trevor Ohlsen, where you can get perks like handwritten letters and t-shirts and Skype calls and all sorts of other shit. Of course, the Saturday Patreon episodes exclusive to Patreon members. That's patreon.com/Trevor Ohlsen. Zach Ward, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the show, and we'll see you next time.
Hello, hello.
Oh, I'm here, and you hear me? There he is.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice, cool. This is the first time using these earbuds, but it would appear as if the sound's not coming through it. So give me just 1 second.
No worries. But you can hear me good.
Yeah, I can hear you. Just try to get some better input for you.
Gotcha. I hear you good.
All right. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
All right, sweet. Just
Zach?
had to get it was on the computer.
Zach, motherfucking Ward, how are you?
I'm doing well, buddy. How about yourself?
I am great. It's great to see you, man. It's been forever.
Yeah, you as well, dude. I like this background you got going.
It's
Is
very
that velvet?
It's yes. What
Nice.
is velvet actually made of? Like, what is velvet?
I think it's just a type of fabric.
Okay. Yeah, I actually, this is made out of like 6 horses that I slaughtered. And yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, so
Blue
it was
horses. Where'd you track those down?
Yeah, well, it was dyed through certain means that I have, and yeah, it's like $4,000. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, nice.
No, I've been
How's it
using
going, buddy?
it's going great, man. No, I was using a makeshift backdrop. I was just taking my curtains off the wall for a while, and I was like, I gotta make this a bit better, a bit more official, a bit more efficient. And so I picked up these at Walmart, like it's just 2 curtains. Again, they're meant to be for just like curtains, but they're really thick and they kind of look like a backdrop. So I was like, that'll do.
That'll do.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Well, again, I appreciate you being here, taking the time to do this. I know you're a busy man.
I'm not too busy.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was just having this conversation the other day. It's like we all love to come off as like really busy. And
No,
yeah.
I love I worked so last year I was working at that law firm, right? And that was a very standard 8:30 to 5 like 40 to 45 hour a week gig. And I switched over to teaching guitar. I guess probably February is when that happened. And when I did, like my hourly rate doubled, so I cut my hours in half. It's awesome.
Nice.
I'm substantially less busy, a lot more time to like think and be a human, and it's great.
That's great, man. So are you doing that full time? Are you teaching?
Yeah.
Nice.
Teaching guitar full time.
Nice.
Amongst all of the other like classic musician income streams which you know about, but various gigs, recording, yada yada yada. But yeah, teaching guitar is the main thing.
Nice. So you're no longer at that law firm?
No. Quit there back in February.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about that a little bit, and you were like ready to be done last time we talked.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Lawyers are just always very upset about everything.
Yeah.
And very upset all the time. And I don't know, I was doing it to try to get an idea of if I wanted to go forward and go to law school. And I don't know, the law still is interesting, but just kind of watching the other lawyers and the lifestyle that they had to lead in order to do the job effectively, Doesn't sound so great.
Well, it seems like a hyper stressful job.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
apart from the fact that, well, obviously you have to be very intelligent to do it, I would assume, but like the idea of defending somebody, especially if you knew that they were guilty, I don't know,
yeah,
it almost comes down to like a moral thing. For me, if like I've never had any interest in law, but if I knew that this person like murdered a family, I'd be like, how the no, you know, nope. You think he did? No, he did not. When he's he's in the back telling you, like, hey, I chopped him up into pieces. I know where the bodies are at. No one else does. You're like, holy shit.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if I could do that, but so you were thinking
Yeah,
about going to law school?
yeah, it was for sure. Not no longer.
Yeah.
But kind of there were a bunch of things. I don't know. So I know you know most of this, but we're on the show, so I'll just give kind of like a brief
Oh,
30,000 foot flyover.
please extrapolate.
But I
Yes.
finished up with music school back in 2017. Kind of shot out of music school forcefully,
Yeah, why didn't you
involuntarily.
tell everybody what happened there and what school well, you and I both went to.
Yeah, for sure. So we met at a school called McNally Smith, which was over in downtown St. Paul, Minnesota. And it was a contemporary music school, very similar to the likes of like Berklee College of Music is the big famous one over in Boston, but very similar to that. Uh, and Trevor and I went there for together for our freshman year. Then he dropped out, and I carried on.
What? I was like, 1 year. I just want to see what the hype's about.
Just got to check it out. But yeah, so I carried on and got to through the first semester of my senior year, and then the school shut down with pretty much no warning, and everyone got an email on a Wednesday, the Wednesday of finals week, saying that this was the last semester and to not come back, which was a nice solid 4 days before everyone was leaving for Christmas. So tons of advance notice there. But luckily, I lucked out on the deal because I was working towards a minor, and also my guitar teacher at the time happened to also be the dean of the whole school. So we were able to kind of take some of the credits that were applied to the minor and repurpose them for my major to still get the degree there.
Yeah, I remember. Well, obviously, I hadn't been going at that point, but I remember when that broke out well, for one, it was a major deal in the Twin Cities. I remember it got a lot of publicity because people were like, how the fuck can you shut down a college with, like you said, a Wednesday? Or was it a Wednesday? And then they were just like,
Yeah.
or I thought it was a Friday and they shut it down on Wednesday. I might be wrong.
No, email came out on a Wednesday night of finals week, and we had that. Then we had Thursday, Friday, the weekend, Monday, Tuesday, and Tuesday was the last day of the semester.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. But yeah, I just remember when that happened. I was like, well, because I knew of you and all of our other friends that, and you guys were in your senior year and you guys did you just have one semester left technically?
Yeah, just a semester left.
Yeah, and I just remember all of you guys were like, we're not gonna graduate, and
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is fucking crazy. I was like,
it was
how?
really wild.
Yeah, I was like, how can they just shut it down? And the fact that it was a for-profit school, it's like, what sort of financial person did they have running that thing? Because
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're playing guitar and we're giving them 30,000 a year. I mean, you think
Yeah.
they'd figure it out? Like, we got a good thing going on. Let's try to really manage it well and sustain it for the future. But they just wrecked it.
Yes. Yeah. You froze up there a little bit, but I caught your drift.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
But
it
yeah,
seems like like you said, 30,000 a year. If we're being generous and saying that all of the teachers are getting paid 90K a year, a 3-to-1 student teacher ratio should take care of all the overhead, right? Maybe 4-to-1 so that you can cover like all the rent and whatnot. But it was like, I don't know, 12, 13-to-1, something like that. It's like, where is it all going? Huh?
that's a good question. Well, the fact that it was a for-profit school, I don't like that idea of.
Yeah.
But at least they came out and said it. But I mean, didn't the owner or the creator of it, didn't he have like a private jet and shit?
Yeah, they did. They kind of got like really, really torched in the community afterward for it, and over the last couple years, it's become clear that it wasn't the school didn't go bankrupt because they were taking money out, because both of them have also declared personal bankruptcy. And so it's, while the initial sentiment was like, hey, screw these guys that like took all the money and left the school to burn, it's kind of become clear over the last, I don't know, a couple years that it failed for a lot of reasons, but one of those appears to not be that they were taking too much out.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had never really heard what happened exactly, but I do remember people just being furious at the
Uh,
fact that here's very successful people with a lot of money, and off they go on their private jet into paradise. Obviously that's not the correct
yeah.
narrative like you just stated, but yeah,
It certainly seemed like the narrative at the time, though. I mean, that at the time, it definitely seemed like that's what was going on.
yeah, well, just
Um,
and just the fact that they were like when it shut down, like all the kids that were staying in the dorms, like they shut the dorms down. It's like they had
yeah,
to, and they had literally like 5 days to figure out where they were going to be living.
yeah, absolutely. And there was a decent number of international students that also kind of got hammered by it and had to go back, like fly back internationally, and then couldn't come back to the U.S. because the visa was a school visa and things like that. But yeah, so that occurred at the end of 2017 and kind of got like shot out of school that way. And pretty immediately after that, I'd been working as a personal trainer through most of college. And pretty immediately after that, got a job teaching guitar, which is kind of what I had always wanted to do in some manner or another. Even like the childhood dream of like, oh, I'm gonna be a rock star and tour the world and make millions of dollars on a bus, right? Even that kind of for myself was always coupled with this idea of like I would also be doing lessons and teaching people and things like that. So that was kind of always the goal. But I got out of college and got this job teaching guitar at a school that will leave nameless. But it sucked. I was there for 4 months, and the guy got me two students.
Mm.
Um, and just and there was all sorts of management issues going on. It took them 2 months to get me my first paycheck, things like that. So I quit that job feeling pretty discouraged, and that kind of put me at discouraged on guitar teaching, I should say. So that kind of sent me back to the drawing board. I brainstormed a bunch of different ideas, like, all right, well, what are we going to do now? And one of those things, kind of the top of the list, was to go back to school for music law, um, which, albeit, is a very expensive, very time consuming ordeal. So I was listening to, I'm pretty sure it was Derek Sivers that said this. But he recommended that whenever possible, before making an investment, a major investment in something, to try it um, in whatever manner you can. So I kind of took that advice and got a job at a law firm, which was not a music law firm, it was a personal injury law firm, just to kind of see what life was like as a lawyer, right? And kind of study these lawyers and the way they were living their lives, and kind of what the job created as a style of living. And the job was really brutal. Had a pretty demanding, rather difficult boss, but it ultimately, it was an incredibly good thing, and ultimately really grateful for the idea, because it showed me that I didn't want to do that, and saved me 4 years and probably $120,000 of tuition and everything.
Yeah, that's smart. Like you just said, before you throw hundreds of thousands of dollars into something or anything, starting a business or some sort of brand or idea, it's like just dip your toes in a bit, try it out.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
a
yeah, I
bunch of other people have taken the risk, so jump out there and let them take the risk, and just kind of be a cog in the machine and see what the machine is like before jumping in.
yeah. Well, I admire the fact that you just jumped into, you went, you just like your willingness to just try things. Like, let's just try the personal law firm. No, it's not music law, but I bet if I do jump into it, I'm going to learn a lot, and everything that I learned could be applied to music law. Um, So I admire, yeah, I think more people need to do that. Just like the willingness to just try things. I think if there's anything
Yeah.
that's a little different about myself, and I'm trying very modestly because I'm just a normal person for sure, but I'm willing to like just try things. Whereas a lot of and like I'm willing to start things, and if they don't work, then just whatever, it's no big deal. But I think a lot of people get caught up on like they're too afraid to fail, and so they never try things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. It's especially, I mean, I guess I could kind of get that fear as you get older and you have more responsibilities and whatnot. But especially at our age, younger than our age, even a little older than our age, it's yeah, experiment with stuff and be willing, I guess, to accept that it's not the right thing or to move along from it if it's not the right thing. Because if you don't, then you're just going to kind of be miserable, right?
For sure. I just listened to um you still hear me right now?
Hmm.
Okay, I thought the audio went out for a second. I just finished listening to Mark Cuban's How to Win at the Sport of Business. Have you read that one?
I've not read that one. No.
Super quick. It's like an hour. It's not even 2 hours on Audible. And basically, it's a culmination of his different blog posts. And he talked exactly about that. He's like, if you're in your 20s, he's like, just go try different things, especially if you don't know exactly it is what you want to do, which is most people. And so he's like, just go try things, go mess up, go adventure, go have fun. And it's like, you're going to figure out what it is that you want to do along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, the I guess to kind of tie that back in, like the law firm was a failure, right? Because I determined that's not the route to go. And it left me with like a lot of, like I said, the boss was pretty demanding and pretty angry all the time, let's say. So, like a few times a week of being beat down and being told that you're stupid and whatnot kind of takes a toll. But all of that to be said, it I had to make money. One, like, I had to find some way to make money, and it allowed me to do that. It allowed me to save a ton of money and a ton of time. And then there's the other kind of intangibles of now I'm a musician with law firm experience on my resume, which never hurts, and things like that. So it's, I guess, like I think a lot of my friends I see going into things, and it's just like a very clear either this is going to succeed or not. And even the things that don't succeed, there's so many of those sorts of things that you can take out of it that can turn that like failure of that thing into a success in the long term.
Yeah, even just looking at at the times that we're in right now with the pandemic and quarantining and everything, it's like if we have our eyes open and we're paying a bit attention, it's like hopefully we're all learning some lessons from this, time of adversity. It's like for me, it was like a big reminder of, oh, what's most important, like what really matters. And it's like family, family. It's like what really matters.
Yeah.
And it's like all this extraneous shit kind of falls to the wayside, that we're always thinking about and worrying about. And yeah, but yeah, I couldn't agree more. I wanted to jump in with you, talking about fitness, because I was thinking about this the other day, how you and I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but you're my closest friend from college that we've stayed in touch. We've stayed in touch. You've come to
Mhm.
Michigan. We've hung out a good bit whenever I'm in the cities and stuff like that. And apart from the fact that we've always had a good time together, and we've had some beers together, done that, hit some strip clubs. Uh, well, I
The
feel
good
like,
old boo.
oh man, the Deja Vu strip club. I've talked about that on here. It's like there was the first podcast or for podcast first strip club that I had ever been. Yeah, we had ever been to, and
A wild place.
like remember and they were just completely naked, and I was like, shouldn't they be covered up a little bit, like like come
Yes, yes.
like tease us a little. Come on, play the game a bit.
It survived the pandemic though, so they're doing something right.
True, true. It's like, yeah. But anyway, I feel as if that one thing that really like bonded our friendship together was the fact that you and I are both very passionate about exercise and fitness. And so,
Mhm, yeah.
um, how did now I really don't know, like how did you get into fitness?
Yeah, so I didn't really work out much in the classic sense, right? Like in a gym, moving barbells or dumbbells or whatever. Didn't do much of that in high school at all, but I did play sports all the way through 12th grade. Through middle school, I played baseball, ran cross country, and did football. And then once high school came around, I kind of tailored that down to just baseball. And played baseball all 4 years through college. Also did a lot of martial arts all the way through
You were playing
all the way through
baseball in
college. I didn't
college?
play baseball in college.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no,
Yeah.
I was sorry. That was misspoke. Played baseball all the way through high school.
Gotcha. I was gonna say, I was like, when the
Yeah,
fuck were you
surprise.
sneaking off to do that? Yeah.
Yeah, no. So all the way through high school, and same with martial arts. Did martial arts are all the way through high school.
That's right. Did
So
you do
while I wasn't
taekwondo?
working out in I was technically karate. The school I was going to, though, place called World Karate down in Barney, Texas. Mr. Brown is the teacher there. Really, really fantastic dude and fantastic program, and provided a lot of really good like life learnings, I guess you could say. And strongly believe it's one of the top 5 things I can recommend. On top of, we've already hit the one of fail often and fail quickly, I guess. But the second one is learn how to fight, right? Because it really changes a lot about life when you can walk down a street and know, like, be comfortable that if someone was gonna attack you, you'd be fine. Um, the but anyways, that's an aside. The So I was active all the way through high school, even though I wasn't really working out, and this was all down in Texas. And then I moved from Texas to Minnesota to come up to college. Go to a college that has no sports teams, no intramurals, so sports are pretty much off the table.
It's like the most
Um,
unathletic college in the
it was
country.
unreal. It was unreal. We had like an intramural dodgeball team for 2 years. We went like 0-4 in dodgeball, freaking dodgeball. I don't even know how you lose 4 games of dodgeball in a row because it's just like a coin toss of whoever wins. Um, but anyway, so I'm up in Minnesota at a school with no sports, and then October, I guess November rolls around, and it gets dark all the time and really cold. So it's not like I can go out and go on runs or anything like that. So I took the opportunity, got a gym membership, and just kind of fell into it and loved it that way.
That had to have been a big change for you coming up from the beautiful heat of Texas to the frigid wasteland of Minnesota.
Yeah, I mean, the heat of Texas is not beautiful. It's the best way I could describe it is that it is the opposite of Minnesota. Minnesota has like a 6 to 7 month long winter that is brutal. Texas has a 6 to 7 month summer that's brutal.
Mm.
And the opposite, like the winters in Texas are very, very nice. They get down to like the low 30s. The highs are in the low 50s every day. It's very lovely. And same here, like the summers are really nice up here. So it's just kind of like the other side of the coin, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's just like it is here in the Upper Peninsula. It's like beautiful summers, like harsh, intense winters. I just remember when we started hanging out, you were just like, "Fuck this cold." Like,
Yeah.
and I'm kind of impressed that I feel like you are like a Minnesotan now. I mean, you've been there so long.
Yeah, I've been here 6 years now. I was living in a house with a couple guys for 2 years, though, and determined that was not the route when it snows a lot, because if you live in an apartment building, someone else shovels the snow for you. And
Yes.
that's huge. That's great. So would highly recommend, if you live somewhere where it's snowing and you're in a city, do an apartment.
Yeah.
Just do an apartment.
For sure. Okay, so November rolls around, you can't run, you can't get outside, and so you get a gym membership.
Yeah, absolutely. And partly as a way to stay active, partly as a way, got to get the chicks. The but yeah, mainly as kind of, it was just, I guess, like a way to have the ability to do something that was marginally healthy for myself. And I guess, like, I started with fitness, as everyone does with like the prefab bodybuilding.com workout plans by some dude that's in New York and is definitely taking a lot of steroids. But it's saying, you're like, oh yeah, look at that guy, and this, he says this is his plan, so I just got to follow it. And there is something to that, but I mean, obviously, you don't look like the bodybuilding pros unless you live your entire life like a bodybuilding pro. But that was kind of like the step in, and then the routine of it, of having some place to go for an hour and a half every day. And that was kind of like my time to work on myself was crucial.
Yeah, I view the gym as like my sanctuary.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
it's like a special place where I can be with myself and I can just blow off steam and go crazy, whether it be through weightlifting or cardio or like more relaxed with stretching and more like mindfulness stuff. But it's like I think for people like you and me who are so into it, it really is. It's like a holy space. It's
for sure.
yeah, yeah.
And I was talking with someone the other day about this, of kind of throughout my whole life, I've always tried to monetize my hobbies. So like worked as a personal trainer, right? The working out was a hobby, so try to turn that into making some money. The teaching guitar, I like to play guitar, so try to turn that into money. I like to cook a lot, so like I've kicked around the idea of going to cooking school. And one of the things that the pandemic, like you were saying, it kind of focuses everything down, right? Is I've started to kind of believe that you shouldn't monetize your hobbies, that you should allow them to remain as hobbies. Because
Hmm.
to take that example of the gym, like you were just talking about, the instant you monetize your time in the gym, it somehow kind of devalues that holiness almost, of this is like my place to come and work on myself. Um, and not to say it doesn't come back, right? I'm not working as a personal trainer anymore, and that feeling is definitely there. But it's just something to consider, right? If the instant you monetize that hobby, it's not really a hobby anymore.
Yeah, it
And
becomes more so of a responsibility.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I definitely see what you mean, but I do think that's a beautiful way of looking at it, like monetizing your hobbies, like monetizing
Mhm.
things. Obviously, I'm trying my hardest to monetize this podcast, and obviously, I've been trying my hardest throughout years to monetize all my music. And then that's why I sent you that picture the other day of like I had 160,000 streams and I made like $400. It's like
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
It's
I'll happily rail on Spotify. I ran some numbers the other day. I don't know if you want to get into that territory, but
sure, sure.
I have some very strong feelings that the current business practices in the music industry, while they've never been good, they're really truly predatory right now. And it kind of baffles me a little bit, I guess, that the major labels and the PROs, SCAP and BMI and CSAC, don't stand up and say something about it. Because, for instance, I was looking into Spotify's numbers the other day, and first off, I mean, I'm a very skeptical individual. So when someone like Spotify makes it really difficult to find their profit numbers and everything, then that kind of immediately sets off alarm bells, right? But on average, a musician gets paid somewhere between like 1 and 3/10 of a cent per play. Uh, and Spotify is making, on average, when you factor in all of their profits and everything from, and then divide that out by the total number of streams that they had in 2019, they made somewhere between 1 and 3 cents per stream.
Mm.
Um, Gross, right? So you do have to factor in like the expenses that they have and everything. But the fact of the matter is that the CEO of Spotify, Daniel Ek, made more than any musician in the world last year.
Oh, of
He made,
course.
I think it was like $1.3 billion last year. Um, and like no other musician came close. And I want to say maybe Post Malone was the highest paid musician last year, but it was somewhere in the triple digit millions, but not 1.3 3 or 4, whatever, that this Spotify CEO made. So I think you got to kind of look at that and recognize it on both sides of, one, it's a broken system because it's devaluing the product, really, of music, because eventually that's going to end up kind of destroying musicians' ability to make music, right? um but at the same time, I don't know, it's, yes, so I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at
No,
that.
you're totally right, and I'm a big fan of Spotify. I pay for it as a subscription. I love that I can listen to music, uh, basically free with no commercials wherever I want, whenever I want. But as an artist who has music up on Spotify, it's like you just said it. It's like you're not making any money. You're
No, none.
yeah, my song, I have my song "Crazy in Love," um, somewhere, I don't even know where, but they showed me analytically that it has, and this isn't on Spotify, but it showed that it had 75,000 streams. I don't know if it's on YouTube or where it is. 75,000 plays, and I made like $30. And
Yeah.
it's like I
Unreal.
said, 160,000 streams, like $400. It's like I'm making almost $400 a month off this podcast now through Patreon. And I was like,
Mhm.
why the fuck haven't I done this years ago? um,
Yeah.
but my perspective on Patreon changed, and I was looking at Patreon as a crowdfunding sort of GoFundMe, I'm broke, please give me money platform. And
Yeah.
that's how they initially were set up. But then they changed it to a membership platform, basically like a Netflix. But
Mhm.
I think you're totally right. I mean, the fact that you just said it, the CEO makes $1.3 billion, and good for him for creating an amazing product that I find value in and that I love. But I mean, you make no money. Like I'm a fan of Spotify as far as reaching people. Um, like
Mhm.
you can, if you land on a playlist or something like that, or like that's a big deal. Like a Spotify playlist really can enhance your reach. Um,
Yeah.
and but and that has to keep happening over and over and over and over and over and over again, and then you start to make money. But for sure, like iTunes is the best way for actual money. Apple Music, at least like when I look at my numbers,
Mhm.
the biggest bang for my buck is when people go and buy the album,
Yeah.
go buy the singles. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's the music industry is it's a crazy fucked up industry, and like it's like
It has been for a long time also, and I guess just as like two, I know you know this, but as a couple disclaimers on the conversation we're having at the moment. First off, for myself, in case I screwed up any of the numbers, the working off memory. So any of you listeners that are gonna think about commenting back and be like, no, he only made 1.1 billion, then the point remains the same.
yeah,
Um,
settle down, everyone.
Simmer down. The other thing is, I guess, kind of like what you were just saying, the music industry. This is not a new thing that the music industry has exploited people. It's a new way that it's exploiting people, but really, as long as we have had a music industry in America, it's been exploiting people. Uh, so I mean, we're harping on Spotify right now, but I guess I don't want to just clarify that it's not like Spotify came into this golden utopia of an industry and screwed it up. It's the industry was already jacked up ahead of time.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always been nefarious characters. I mean, everyone, even people who aren't musicians, they know the narrative of managers screwing over musicians and record labels screwing over musicians. And
Yeah.
it's a very unique industry. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the answer is to it either, because at this point the cat is out of the bag, and it's going to be really difficult to convince consumers to go back to some sort of environment where you have to buy every single song that you want to listen to. Uh, so I'm not really sure that there is a great answer the to the problem. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. No,
but Yeah.
Sorry if I just cut you off, but I just wanted to say it's like live shows are like musicians' best friends as far as making money. At least that's been my
Mhm.
experience. And now let's look at fucking how COVID took that away from everyone. Um,
Yeah.
which brings me to another point I wanted to cover with you. What's it been like? What's the music scene like right now in the Twin Cities?
It is genuinely not good. The music cities are a really liberal place, very left leaning. Did I say the music cities? Sorry, the Twin Cities are a very left leaning place. So, because of that, a lot of businesses have been really reluctant to reopen. Uh, which we can discuss whether or not that's the right move or not later. But the fact of the matter is that it's really taken away a lot of opportunities for uh, I guess you could say smaller bands or local bands to perform. The you Throughout this summer we have had some things going on like a rooftop concert or a drive-in concert or something like that. But kind of the fact of that matter is that that only works if you have a huge draw, right? No one is setting up and going through the difficulty of doing a drive-in concert unless you're going to be able to, sell 5,000 tickets to it, because you have to have this monstrous stage in order to do it, and there's a huge cost structure. Um, and kind of the same general deal with the rooftop concerts and things like that. And there have been some people that are doing some good stuff for local bands, putting on some shows and things like that. But again, that kind of is like, unless you were in the top five bands of the local scene before all of this began, then those opportunities, because they're so incredibly limited, aren't really aren't really there. And and there has been, I guess the issue that we've run into as our band, which a little shameless plug here, our band's called Of the Orchard, and we had an album that was slated to come out in May, and we pushed it because of the pandemic and ended up putting it out, I guess, a little over a week ago now. It's Monday, so a week and a half ago now. Uh, Available on all streaming services. The but
Go listen to it and not support them because they're not going to get any fucking money.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but we pushed it to try to be able to do something with the album release, and it just there isn't much there. And we kind of talked with a few bars around the town, because bars are still interested in having live music, but the fact of the matter is, with all of the capacity restrictions right now, bars are operating on such a limited budget that they can't really afford to pay what they used to, or what really a live show is worth. Uh, so you're kind of forced to work off of ticket sales, but ticket sales are capped at a lower amount also. So it kind of ends up with this thing where you either have to kind of like overnight double your ticket price in order to try to make the same amount of money, or accept that you're going to make basically nothing out of the deal. And we ultimately decided against doing that, just because we felt like it wasn't, now's not the time to try to double ticket prices on people and make it more expensive to go and do things. So yeah, I mean, the music scene there, people are still making music, releasing music and things like that, but the music scene here is pretty dead at the moment.
Are you guys running at half capacity?
It is. It kind of, yes and no. Um, the official wording from Minnesota at the moment is that restaurants and bars can be open at either 50% capacity, or how many ever people can get in there and maintain 6 foot radius of a circle around them.
Like,
Whichever one of those is smaller.
okay, it's
And
like
generally speaking, the 6 foot thing is a smaller number than the 50% capacity. Uh, so, and then on top of that, like I was saying, a lot of places in the Twin Cities are a pretty left leaning place. So a lot of places aren't even hitting those numbers. Um,
mm,
so we'll see. We'll see what happens when winter rolls around. A lot of places right now are existing kind of off of patios, because that's a lot easier to manage and everything. But obviously that has a time limit on it, right? But
I
so
was
we'll
gonna say,
see.
yeah, that goes away with living in Minnesota. I mean, they can pull that off in
Yes.
California, but yeah, not too fucking cold.
Yeah, no one's going to a brewery to sit on a patio in January.
No, no.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
just buy the beer and take it back home.
and it's with that's such a difficult thing with these venues being closed because that's how entertainers start their career. I mean, when I was living in Minneapolis, it's like I played all over the place. And I know you've played all over the place there. And it's like our friend Jake too's now. It's like he played all over the place. I mean, that's what entertainers do is they move to a city and they work the local scene and they hone their craft and they get better and better. And then eventually they hit the road and start doing it. But it's like when you take that away, it's like you're taking away a part of a part of the creative process of honing your craft and honing your live show. It's like I haven't done a show in 9 months, and I know if I went out there right now, it'd be rusty. I got to knock the
Oh
rust
yeah.
off. Oof, yeah, yeah. So it's a shame that I understand why they're doing it, but it's like I hope all these musicians are like able to collect unemployment or figure that out or have been collecting unemployment because a lot of musicians, um, oh, I just lost my fucking video off my phone. That's all right. All right, we're gonna be going here now. Um,
All right.
yeah, a lot of musicians, they don't think they don't have a business mentality. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you think very business like. Like just the way you talk about numbers and the way you speak, you understand that it's a business. And I feel like a lot of musicians forget that, or they're just like, I just want to sing and be creative, man. It's like, no, you have to understand that you have to know how to make money and you have to be filing these forms and doing all this stuff. And so I don't know. I hope
Yeah.
these musicians are collecting unemployment. But that's another thing I wanted to talk to you about is how you said the Twin Cities are such left leaning, like I think I've heard you describe them maybe as like hyper progressive sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So of course a few months ago the George Floyd incident happened out there. And I think it's safe to say that we all agree that what happened to him was horrible and that
Mhm.
like I think I haven't heard anyone say otherwise. But what was it like living in Minneapolis when that happened? Because I remember I texted you and to see how you were doing, and you sent me. I don't know. I just ended up looking at like the fucking riots that were going on there, the fires. I remember you said you woke up from a couple explosions that went off. So what was it like living in Minneapolis when the George Floyd incident happened, and has it improved there since?
Um. I guess let me handle it on each of those things on their own. So when the George Floyd stuff happened, it happened on a Monday, right? And there was a firm like 2 day lag time where everyone was kind of in the cities were in a little bit of a state of shock, I guess you could say. Yeah. The this video was circulating and it was kind of like you said, no one really disagreed. Like it was on a level of just inhumanity that everyone was kind of just floored that this would occur. uh, and especially in Minneapolis doesn't exactly have the best track record of police with black people interactions. We had Philando Castile. I think that occurred when you were living in the Twin Cities. And then a few years before that, there was another incident like that. So it's, yeah, the Twin Cities are not exactly a stranger to this. I think kind of the shock was compounded by the fact that it's like, how does this just continually happen on this egregious of a level here? It's not like we're living in Chicago or Los Angeles or New York where it's like a really violent place and there's a lot of really tense interactions. It's Minneapolis. It's a B-level city. It's not like it's not like we have a bunch of organized crime and yada yada. So I think that there was that lag period of just like holy crap. And then Wednesday and Thursday of that week, I actually thought were really, I guess you could say, good. There was a little bit of rioting and looting going on, but not much. It was within the realm of, you could tell that this was just kind of like some isolated pockets of angry people and or people taking advantage of the situation. But I thought I had a feel very similar to, and I guess I was 5, so maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but I thought I had to feel very similar to how kind of the country felt after 9/11 happened, where everyone was kind of together on the same page that, hey, this is bad and we need to work together and get this fixed. Uh, but there was kind of this low murmur that the weekend was going to be rough because there were a bunch of kind of the big organizations flying in, and
What do you
those
mean by that, big
that
organizations
turned
flying
out,
in?
uh, not to speak out of turn, but maybe just like, maybe the best way to say it is just a bunch of people that don't live in the Twin Cities were going to be flying into the Twin Cities, uh, ostensibly to protest and try to create change. The But that ended up being the case, and then Friday, Saturday, was kind of the big days when we saw a ton of burning and a ton of looting, and I guess like a systematic failure at kind of every level, because the protesters turned violent, which causes problems. The police became more violent in their response to the protests, which creates more problems. The governor drug his feet on bringing the National Guard in, so there wasn't really a trained force that actually knew how to handle something like this. They didn't show up until Sunday. So it very much felt kind of just like a good luck
Mm.
sort of situation, which was pretty dicey. And I think, I think really kind of not to speak out of turn, I guess, because there's a lot of bad things on every side of this equation. But for what I'm talking about right now, that rioting and that looting that we saw occurring, where people were burning buildings, and like, we have an entire whole neighborhood that is 6 or 7 blocks of where I'm sitting right now that is destroyed, and well, probably is not going to come back for, I got to think it's going to take a year or two for them
Oh, it's going to
to
take.
at least get the buildings usable again.
Yes,
uh,
yes.
and when that occurred, it gave anyone who wanted an out from having to be for police reform and everything, it gave them that out. So now they could say, like, yeah, well, the police need to be reformed, maybe, but look at what the rioters have done. And I really think that is rather despicable, because everyone was in agreement. Things were maybe not moving as fast as people wanted them to, but that they were starting to move in that direction of getting some substantial change. And it really kind of turned into this partisan issue, and it's a real shame, I think. So that was what it was like when it happened. All of that being said, we made it through safe and sound, all windows intact, all people intact that I know of. No possessions harmed, anything like that. And it was kind of like a very unique thing to live through. So it was, I don't want to say it was cool, but it was kind of cool to like live through and experience all of the people trying to come together in the city, and the
Yes.
divisiveness that occurred and everything. Maybe unique is a better way to put it than cool, because it wasn't cool, but
I see what you're saying.
yeah. So that was what it was like when it happened. Now, as far as kind of what's occurred since then, has been really, I think, kind of a mess personally.
Mm.
Speaking from both fact and my personal belief, the facts of the matter are that since this occurred, The city council has come out. We were the first city to come out, and the city council said they were going to explore options to defund the police. And that happened, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks or so after all of the George Floyd stuff got calmed back down, and buildings weren't being burned anymore and things like that. And pretty rapidly after that, we saw a really sharp increase in violent crime.
Shocker.
Yeah, you sent me a thing saying that you were going to ask about this. I did just like a touch of research to make sure that my opinion wasn't wrong on this. But across the country this year, we've seen an increase of 5.3% on average across the whole country in violent crime. Minneapolis, since the George Floyd incident, has seen a 17% increase. So nearly 3 times the national average. And you look at the city council comes out and says, hey, we're going to explore options to defund the police, and then a month later asks the police to provide more protection to the neighborhoods that these council members live in. So it just is like a very pandery thing. But on a more important side, I mean, the fact of the matter is that crime is rising, and some of that is to blame on the rhetoric coming out of leadership, and also some of it is to blame on the police themselves, right? I mean, it's their job to decrease crime and to kind of keep people safe, and ultimately they're not doing that job.
Yeah, well, this idea of defunding the police, I mean, I think any thinking person would understand that that's a fucking horrible idea. It's like Trump tweeting like law and order. It's like, yes, we do need law and order. Like, the guy's a little crazy, but I mean, I agree, and I think most everyone would agree. So I think that people just, obviously everyone, not everyone, but certain people really despise police right now, and so they think that they need to get rid of them, and they think, I mean, it's like, in the moment that sounds good, especially when crowd pathology and everyone is saying, yeah, like no police, no police. And it's like, when there's a fucking crowd of people saying no police, even if people who are like half and half, who aren't really like independent thinkers, they might go, well, yeah, maybe they're right. Maybe we should get rid of the police. Or they're too afraid to speak out against it because they'll get criticized, or in certain situations attacked physically if you're in a city with these with violent protests going on. I understand that there's peaceful ones as well. But do you know what's going on?
Not to just to kind of, I guess, say something on that, and not to overly contradict you, but I think ultimately a lot of these people that are saying to defund the police are thinking people, and it's not a lack of logical capability. I think it generally stems from a misunderstanding of why we have these problems in the police. And I guess just as a few examples, there's right now in most major cities, the volume of crime versus the number of police officers are instructed that they have to handle a call within 90 seconds of arrival, which, for some of these instances promotes more severe action than is maybe necessary, right? Maybe you could talk someone down, but also you could just tackle them and you would be done with it quicker. There's no national register of police who have been sanctioned for violent offenses. So, for instance, a cop could get fired for abusing an arrestee in one city, and then they could just go to another city, and unless that city specifically called and asked why the person got fired, there's no national register to show that that person got fired for abuse of force. And Rogan and Jocko Willink had a really good podcast on that. It was the last one that they did together, maybe a few months ago, but Jocko did a really good job of outlining some of those issues. And I think everyone's on board that, the police are not succeeding at the moment and change needs to occur there. I think just the concept of that change is that we need to defund the police stems from a misunderstanding of why we have the issues that we do.
That was a very nice way to articulate it. Yeah, I remember I messaged you when that Jocko Rogan podcast came out. I was like, "Did you see that?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, you're fantastic."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, like I gave a few things there, but if anyone's on the fence about it, I would really recommend it because he does a really fantastic job of kind of walking through each of the major issues and kind of where they come from and how they could be fixed.
and he's such a like he can detach so well and look at things really objectively. I mean, that's what his training as a
Mhm.
leader in the military, that's what he did. Like, so I've heard him talk about that. It's like when you're in the middle of a fight where literally you could die and you're killing people. He's like, you detach, you think objectively. It's like there's no emotion. It's like like that's a special type. Not I don't want to say special type of person. It might be, but I mean, like talk about just an exceptional leader, and that's I mean that's what his podcast is. I mean, his whole show is all about leadership. You know, he wrote a book about leadership. The guy's a leader.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
safe to say.
So what are they doing now in Minneapolis? Do you know? Are people still leaning towards the idea of defunding the police? Because I'm a little disconnected from the news.
Yeah, the general sentiment is still leaning that way, but I think has definitely swung away from the reactivity. And I think people are a little bit more into the fact that just some manner of really substantial reform needs to occur. Um, is and not to throw too much of my own opinion in here, but I think it's pretty evident that that's true. When every 2 or 3 years you're having one of these incidents of police abusing force that becomes a national level incident because it's so incredibly egregious. I think it's a little difficult to look at that and be like, "Yep, things are going fine. Let's keep going."
Yeah, but
Uh,
then what do you think of when there's a white person that's killed by another white cop, and that gets no news.
yeah, I definitely do think that the ethnicity of the person who is killed plays a very large role in the national coverage or not that an incident gets. I don't necessarily think that one is worse than another, right? I mean, I think it's equally bad if a cop kills a black person as it is if a cop kills a white person. The it is a little hard to look past the numbers of just if you look on a in interaction by interaction basis. Um, so you kind of put everything on a scale, right? Because cops interact with white people a lot more than they do black people. So there are more, by an objective number, there's more white people that are killed by cops. But when you look at it on a scale of how often they're actually interacting,
Mm-hmm.
black people are killed at a rate of, it's like 3 or 4 times that white people are on a per interaction basis. Um, so, I mean, both are very bad. Uh, from an objective fact, I don't think that either is worse than the other, but it is a little hard to, I guess, look at some of those stats and not think that there is some manner of a problem going on there.
Gotcha. No, you're right. There needs to be, as Jocko put it, like more training, better. Just we need better cops, and but let's not forget, as it we all know, it's like there's however many cops in the USA, there's many positive interactions, and there's many great cops. I'm for
Mm-hmm.
cops, but I'm for cops doing the job right, and obviously we know it's an incredibly stressful, difficult job. It's a very difficult job. I mean, I'm sitting in my room fucking chatting with you, having a good time. This is my job at the moment. And
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to go out on the street every day, particularly in a dangerous city or any, not necessarily saying Minneapolis, but any city where there is a high crime rate or really anywhere, it's like you might not come home that night. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's a real thought that I would say most every police officer has. Obviously, I'm speculating, but I would assume that that's a real thought, not only on the minds of the police officers, but on the minds of the families, you know, of police officers. It's like,
And it's important to remember, I mean, especially not to specifically call people out, but especially the people that are calling for the defunding of the police and everything. It's especially important to remember that while you're doing that, And while you are victimizing and saying like these phrases of like all cops are bastards and things like that, I think it's really important to remember that the vast majority of cops go out and risk their, like you said, their ability to come home that night to their family simply to make it the world a safe enough place that you can walk around and say all cops are bastards. And you know, a little bit in situations like this, little bit of empathy goes a very, very long way, right?
Yeah, there seems to be very little empathy these days
Yeah.
going on. Yeah, that's such a broad brush. It's like all cops are bad. It's like, oh, all of them? Like,
All of them.
oh
Yeah.
wow, we have a problem. But obviously, I do agree with you that there needs to be more training, and as I think we would both agree, like more funding and more education.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, we have to set these people up for success, right? And like you said, it's ultimately a very, very hard job, and it's a lot of split second, very important decisions are made, and we have to kind of give the people the opportunity to succeed, um, and accept the fact, I guess, that every now and then they're not.
yeah. Well, people are flawed, and we always will be. And social media, like positive interactions with like positive videos in general, they're not really going viral. You know, it's
No,
all
yeah,
it is the videos that blow up where you see somebody, you know, killing someone on the street. It is those videos that go around and around because it's you know, it is so insidious, and when you see it, it's, you know, it's horrific, and then people out of anger share. There's a great book that you'd probably really like. It's called Contagious by Jonah Berger. I think I'm correct with saying that. And he talks, it's all about how ideas spread. Um, and one of the things that makes something spread, whether it's an idea or a video or a brand, whatever it is, one of the underpinnings to it is emotion. And then he goes through different emotions, and like if something makes you sad, you probably won't share it because it's almost like an energy level. It's like a depressant almost.
Mhm.
But if something makes you angry and you get fucking fired up, like you are quick to hit that share button. And so it's like
Yeah,
it's understandable that these videos get taken and everyone gets furious, and then they get shared and shared and shared and shared and shared, and then before you know it, everyone's seeing it, and then before you know it, the conversation of defund the police is going on. But I understand that it's been years and years of shit going on. And like I said, I agree
yeah,
that there needs to be, like you just said, set up, like give them a chance to succeed. Um,
yeah,
but I wanted to move
yeah. And
on. Oh, sorry, no, go
just,
on.
I guess, one last thing to kind of wrap that up. The There are a lot of incredibly, incredibly smart, caring people in the country working on the problem. So just kind of, I guess, an encouragement to people that to sift through the reactionary, inflammatory things that are kind of like defund the police that are designed to just get people riled up, and look more towards some of these like really smart, really thoughtful people that are trying to come up with reasonable solutions, I guess you could say, to fix the problem, because there are a lot of them out there. Um and yeah, so I
Well,
guess that's a wrap up on that.
that's a great reminder because there's millions of people out there. There's millions of really great people in this country and in this world. And I couldn't agree with you more. I wanted to talk to you a little bit because we got a big day tomorrow. Uh,
Yes, indeed.
oh, so for people listening, it is November 2nd, and the election is tomorrow. What do you think? We think you spiral into a civil war depending upon the candidate, or
Um, well, I guess so. This is probably gonna be posted on Wednesday. You said, right? So I guess this is a pretty notable. Like either I'm gonna nail this or miss this
you got a 50-50.
substantially. So I I guess a few of the safe predictions is I think it's pretty safe to say it's not gonna be done on the third. Um, and you know, there's what I think is some pretty concerning rhetoric coming out of the both parties, undermining the integrity of the election process. But the fact of the matter is that there's a huge amount of mail in voting going on, and there probably is a little bit of something to the fact that yeah, at the very least, this is going to take a little bit longer to count just to make sure it's all accurate. And with the country as divided as it is right now, I think it's pretty important to make sure that it is accurate. So that's the first thing, I guess, is that I don't think, you said this podcast is coming out on Wednesday. I think it's largely very possible that when this podcast comes out, we still don't have a clear-cut winner.
I would agree.
As far as who's going to win, I think Biden will win. He appears to be leading in all the polls,
but so was Hillary last
Hillary seemed to be leading in a lot of the polls also. So we'll really see. There's a guy named Dan Carlin who does a really great podcast called Hardcore History. But he has another podcast called Common Sense that kind of looks at political happenings and current events and everything like that, and takes them from a pretty central standpoint, I guess you could say. And just to, like, I don't want to do injustice to it, so I'll preface this by saying that the podcast is only an hour. Everyone should just go listen to the podcast because it's a really smart breakdown of what's going on. But to give the super brief summary of it, he effectively was saying that we have these two options. We have Trump and Biden, and it would appear as if Trump is trying to intentionally steer us into an iceberg, whereas Biden has a large possibility of accidentally steering us into an iceberg.
Yeah, he might just be falling asleep at the wheel. That's all.
Yeah, and that his opinion is that it's better to have someone that accidentally hits an iceberg than someone who is, like, intentionally steering us into that. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. There's places are boarding up windows, so I think it's possible it can get messy, but we can hope that it doesn't.
Yeah, well, did you hear what fucking Walmart's doing? They're, like, taking down guns and ammunition because they don't want to incentivize people to violence.
Yeah, which they've since reversed on.
Oh, have they?
I mean, I think that was one of those things that was a good intention, but very poorly thought out on the message that sends.
Well, my immediate thought was that, that's gonna calm people down. Oh, hey, Walmart's taking away our guns and ammunition. It's like,
yeah,
I know it was just a temporary thing, but it's like, I mean, every president in history that we've been alive, the first thing they say is, "I support the Second Amendment," and it's like it's like a great catchphrase that people love to hear. And when I heard that, I was like, Walmart, like, what are you doing? That's a terrible idea. Like you just said, probably well-intentioned, but very poorly thought out.
Yeah, for sure. Very poorly thought out. And I mean, it's good to see that they've reversed on it. But
yeah,
I mean, I think that it is both sides, I think, are kind of, both the Democrat and the Republican side are at this point where it's like, if we don't get our way, then it must be because the system is broken. And it I don't know. I mean, I think that we'll see what happens.
Well, yeah, I think one thing that's very interesting about this whole snowball effect of the entire country seemingly coming to some sort of climax, whatever it will be, it's very interesting that along the way that the people on the far left, like the very, very left-leaning ideologies, like they've shocked people so much that people who were left-leaning, there's a good handful of people left-leaning who view Trump as the preferable alternative because they see the far left as, like, it's like, it's, who was it? The who's running Portland? The super Democratic person in Portland, where
I can't remember his name.
But he's like the most Democratic leader in the nation, and everyone's like, not good enough, not progressive enough.
Yeah,
it's like there's no end to it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I personally have a lot more of an issue with what's going on in Congress than I do with the presidential stuff.
Like what?
I've really appreciated over the last I guess couple weeks, we finally gotten a few opportunities to really see Biden actually elaborate on some of his plans and whatnot. I've really appreciated that because as he has, there's really only a couple things he said that I've felt are really ultra progressive that he's for. Most of what he said I felt like has been rather moderate. Um, I tend to, for myself, I tend to be rather centrist. So a moderate left wing guy, I tend to like as much as a moderate right wing guy. But so that's been kind of nice. But yeah, I'm a little bit more worried about what will happen if we end up with alignment of House, Senate, and White House on either side, really, because I feel like both parties right now are so vengeful and kind of out to get the other one that any sort of like all blue or all red is just going to kind of spell extremism, which is not great.
Yeah, as polarizing as Trump is, and as much as a sociopath and narcissist, like my only concern, like let's think about with everything going on now, and obviously this is just I'm speculating, but with what I've seen, I could be wrong. Politics isn't my thing, but from what I've seen, it seems like Biden is leaning more towards let's keep the country locked down. And I understand that this is a virus and I had it, and I understand that everyone goes through different experiences with it. But I personally think that shutting down the national economy was this biggest failed experiment in American history that's led to much more harm than good. That's just where I view it. And my only concern with Biden is that he will keep everything closed, and he says that he's listening to scientists, and I understand that. I do understand that perspective, and I try my hardest to truly hear what what each candidate's saying, even Kanye West. I want to hear him out. But I just think I don't think our country can, and whether Biden does this or not, who fucking knows, but if he was to become president, but I just feel like our country can't afford to be locked down anymore.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, I think that we have two different sides of things. We have the way Trump has handled it and the way Biden has said he's handled it. I personally think they're both wrong for different reasons. I think they're both too far in the spectrum. Trump is not taking it quite seriously enough, and Biden seems to be leaning a little too much on the fear side of things. And I think that Biden could use a little bit of benefit of not responding to questions like how are we going to live with this by saying, what do you mean, how are we going to live with this? What you need to be asking is, how are we going to die with this? And getting away from that sort of like fear-based rhetoric. And I think also, I mean, to be fair, Trump could use to maybe take this a touch more seriously.
That's a good way of putting it.
But the fact of the matter is that we're watching what's happening in Europe now, and these countries who did lock down hard, like everyone said they should, did defeat the virus for a few months. But Italy, the UK, Germany, they've all re-entered back into France, they've all re-entered back into these lockdowns. And the WHO has quietly slipped out the information that you really need to consider the lockdown before you do it, because the cost of the cure can't be higher than the cost of the disease. And I do think America could survive a 2 or a 4 week lockdown, but when it's not clear that that's actually going to really defeat the virus, then you got to kind of ask like what the cost of the cure is there.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on herd immunity? Just the virus working its way through everyone, and eventually we get to a point where it's no longer a problem.
Yeah, obviously I'm no leader on this, right? I don't know that much about medicine.
We don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
But by saying I don't know that much about medicine, I mean I know nothing about medicine. I took a personal trainer certification course 5 years ago, and that's all I know about medicine.
You seem qualified.
Oh yeah, super qualified. So yeah, really talking down my butt here. But
oh yeah, me too. Asking this question. What's your thoughts on herd immunity?
But I mean, I do think that there's something to it. Sweden definitely tried that. But again, if we're looking at that as the cure, we have to ask what the cost is going to be. And, I mean, even if we're looking at like a 0.1% fatality rate, which I think is what we're sitting at now.
Yep.
I could be wrong on that.
I think you're correct.
But that is still 3.3 million people dead from this. If we go through the herd immunity process. So, and ultimately, I think herd immunity is what's going to solve the equation, right? But I do think that some of these measures to try to slow it down until we get some manner of vaccine and can kind of eliminate the fatality risk of this is probably worthwhile.
Will you take the vaccine if it comes out?
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of people.
If it gets through 3 different phases of trials and the FDA says it's good, and they start putting it out and it's working. I know that there's a bunch of people out there saying that if Trump promotes it, I'm not going to take it. But I mean, at some point, it's like, come on, like Trump is not the one clearing these vaccines.
Yeah, it's like, can we try for a second not to make it political?
Yeah, exactly. It's like if it gets through all of those trials and it works, then yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. I would take it. I just don't want to be first in line.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm a pretty healthy individual. I'll wait for a couple weeks, see what happens.
Yeah.
Start growing third legs, then maybe I'll stop. But
did you see what Bill Gates said? With I can't remember the interview who said it or what, but like, well, obviously they're testing and everything, and so they said 80% of people taking the vaccine are getting sick and experiencing side effects.
Yeah, his that was one of his specific ones. So we got 4 in phase 3 right now, and I think Moderna is the first one to have filled their phase 3. And if my understanding of it is right, none of the ones that are in phase 3 are really a long-term solution. But they are kind of a short-term stopgap, I guess you could say, to give to the people who are at high risk for this, older people who are coming in contact with it a lot, to kind of reduce the risk of death. So we are kind of looking at things that are not perfect, right? You might still get sick. We're just trying to make sure people don't die.
Yeah, well, it's like the flu vaccine. It's like, you take it and you're going to be less contagious if you do still get sick. Yeah, there's benefits.
That being said, speaking of Bill Gates, he did come out and say that he thinks we'll still be locked down 10 years from now. That's pretty wild.
Are you like, no one's on board for that? Can you imagine that?
No one.
We will 100% enter civil war if the government came out and was like, we're looking at 2030, folks.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
People, the American spirit it's too rebellious to go along with something like that. This country's founded on rebellion.
Exactly.
And freedom. I drove past, this is a little off topic, but there's this hick who lives around here. I don't know the person, but he's just like, the house is like, he's a very hick person, but out at the front of his yard, it says, "Give me liberty or give me death." And I really was like reading that and thinking about it. I don't remember who said that. Do you?
Thomas Paine, I believe.
We're going to go out on a loop and say Thomas Paine said, "Give me, I trust you." But like, that man meant that when he said that statement. And that is what the American spirit is.
When he said it, there was actually a Patrick Henry. Sorry, it was Patrick Henry.
Screw Thomas Paine.
Guy sucks.
Yeah.
Patrick Henry said it, and when he said it, it was like there was an actual fear that you wouldn't have liberty. They didn't at the time, and it took us a very long time to get to where the majority of people in America do have liberty. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot different to say that now when there's not really a super present fear of you losing liberty.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Here, Zach, give me 1 minute. How about you tell everyone? We'll keep this going. I just really have to go to the bathroom. Sorry. I'll be back in 30 seconds, but why don't you tell everybody where they can find all your social stuff and a little bit about your album. I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Oh, absolutely. Cool. Um, so yeah, my name's Zach. I guess we got all of the normal Facebook stuff. I'm not a business, so it's just personal Facebook stuff. I do check messages, so I guess if any of you hate what I've said, then reach out that way. But my main thing that I'm on to push at you today is my band Of the Orchard came out with an album called We'll Be Okay Tomorrow. Uh, Originally, it was slated to come out in May, but we pushed it because of the virus, and it came out a week and a half ago now. 11 songs. We've been working on it for a really long time, and it happens to be rather applicable to what's going on today. And we just really want to try to push a message of positivity and hope, I guess, is maybe a better thing than positivity, because ultimately everything is pretty wonky right now. But we will be okay tomorrow, because there will be a tomorrow, and it will all work out. So that's the main message of the album. We are a millennial pop rock band, and we formed in college, playing covers of bands like Third Eye Blind and Fall Out Boy and kind of fun party music like that, and have spiraled from there into further insanity. But yeah, so it's on all streaming services, Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes. I actually do think we're on Napster, so use Napster if that's your vibe. But yeah, on all streaming services, we have a website. It's oftheorchard.com, and we have some merch up there, and we have a way to sign up for an email list down at the bottom of that. So check those things out. We have some more merch that's going to be coming out over the next month or two. And then I guess this is maybe official announcement, although not planned, but official announcement on the Trevor Ohlsen show.
Woo!
But here on November 18th, we've collaborated with a brewery down in San Antonio, Texas, and we'll be having a Of the Orchard branded beer come out. So
Oh, sweet, man.
if you happen to be in the San Antonio area, it won't be distributed out of that area. But if you happen to be in that area, then pick up. It's brewed by High Wheel Brewing, and I think it's going to be called We'll Be Okay Tomorrow, and we'll come with a copy of the album. So there you have it.
That's cool, man. That's a sweet little deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's killer. Hey, I wanted to ask you about, have you seen The Social Dilemma?
I've not seen it yet. I'm familiar with the concept of it, and I've heard a few lectures that guy has given, but haven't seen the actual movie before.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's really good. I would highly recommend it. Do you have any thoughts on silencing and censorship regarding big tech and social media? For example, a lot of conservatives being silenced on Twitter. And it's obviously it's not, well, it seems to be at the moment typically right-leaning conservatives that are being silenced. That seems to be the narrative at the moment. But do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm pretty against censorship as a whole. I think that censorship can really open the door to abuse and to corruption. And I think also it demonstrates a real kind of fundamental lack of faith in the people that are reading the censored material, of not being able to look at something and be like, that doesn't make any sense. That's probably not real. So I'm really against censorship for those reasons. That being said, I think that the issue we're having right now with big tech is that they're trying to have it both ways, and that the original law, effectively, to kind of distill it down, I guess, is that you either can be a media outlet that edits itself, in which case you are held accountable for whatever you put out there, or you can be a media outlet that doesn't edit. Or I guess I should say an example of that might be like a newspaper, Wall Street Journal, or Fox News, or something like that, right? A media outlet as traditionally thought of. Or you can be a media outlet that has no manner of editing or censorship. Reddit would fall into this category, in which case you can't be held accountable for what people post on your service. Right now, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, yada yada, fall under that latter category where they can't be held accountable for what people post on there. And I think the issue that arises is that they're starting to and trying to enforce censorship and editing on their platforms without also taking the responsibility of what people post on the platform. And from a fundamental perspective, I think it's like trying to have your cake and eat it too, and I don't think that's a good idea. Uh, but then I guess the other question arises with it is that the people running big tech are predominantly upper class, middle aged white guys. And is that really the people that we want controlling what is censored?
Mm.
And I think that people that are for censorship should, or like censoring on those platforms, should really make sure that that is, if there's going to be censorship, is that really who we want controlling what gets censored or not?
And it's like who's good for that job? Who gets to
Well,
decide?
personally, I believe no one.
Yeah,
But
exactly,
I guess
exactly.
the reason I pointed out is I think there's a cognitive dissonance of the people who are for the censorship are generally also the people who are railing on upper class white males having too much power, but yet they're arguing to give them power to censor people, which is just giving upper class white males more power. So I think it's
Mhm.
something that really should be considered and people should look at in their belief system, because it really, really seems contrary to what a lot of the left leaning people are arguing for, to give this group of people more control and more power.
Now, when you say upper middle class white people, do you mean the people like who are doing the censoring?
I mean, the people who are running the companies.
Okay, okay.
So we're looking at like the Tim Cooks, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the Jack Dorseys, which, so I'm talking about them, and I'm talking about, I guess I'm assuming that they themselves are not doing the censoring, because they probably have other things to occupy their time. But ultimately, the company is run by them, so their ideology is kind of what gets filtered down, right?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think it's a I think I could, yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree with you more as far as I just think the idea of censorship is it's clearly taking away the First Amendment of freedom of speech. It's like I don't agree with you and I'm not allowing you to say it. And
Yeah.
even if what that person is saying is extreme, like you just stated, it's like we have to be able to trust that people can think for themselves and go, you know what, that's a bit insane. You know what, maybe I won't join ISIS. You know, maybe not.
Mm,
But
yeah.
but it's like, yeah, who determines what hate speech is? Because that's a big conversation. It's like, well, it's hate speech. And it's like, well, what's hate speech? Like that's such a what is that? Like how can we define hate
Mhm.
speech? Um, I just think that's it snowballs from social media, and we see people getting fired from actual jobs, corporate positions, or even like this, not a, it's kind of an example, like even just like Kevin Hart's when he got in trouble, like, and he lost his gig at the Oscars because he said some homophobic joke that he said 10 years ago. And it's like people change, and it's like I don't know. I agree with you. I just think the idea of silencing anyone, even if what they're saying is completely extreme and radical, it's like we have to be able to think for ourselves. And I guess that's all I'll say on that. But I've talked about this before on the podcast. I just think it's to infringe upon freedom of speech is such a fucking bad idea.
It's a real, similar to what we were talking about with Spotify earlier, right? It's, once you allow those companies to begin censoring without also having to take responsibility for what's on their platform, the cat's out of the bag. There's
Yes.
no going back after that. And it, like you say, is probably, a reasonable person can look at that and see ways that it will snowball into more control over people's lives and everything. And ultimately, like, you could still verbally say whatever you want, and people are allowed to take action against you based on what you say, because that is what freedom of speech is, right? Is people, your ability to say something, whatever you want, and people's ability to react to that without the government stepping in and saying you're going to prison because you're not allowed to say that Trump sucks.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, that fundamental right will stay untouched, but I do think that there is something that we have to look at of we're becoming an increasingly digital people. And if at this early stage we already introduce censorship into the digital environment, that is setting a dangerous precedent that we
Yeah.
can hope wouldn't be followed through on, but very easily could.
Absolutely. I mean, well, the digital realm, the technological realm is absolutely the future. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about it. I mean, I feel like you and I are growing up in a time of compound interest regarding like technology. It just seems to have just like whoop, like it's just
Yeah.
everything is improving so fast. I mean, especially with AI now getting better and better. Are you worried at all about AI or anything like that? I really don't know anything about the AI world, but I know that like men like Elon Musk are genuinely concerned about it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know enough to know how incredibly concerned I should be. It's I try to stay that way because I feel like I'll fall down the rabbit hole of being really concerned, and I got enough stuff to stress about in life. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've seen iRobot. I know how this will spiral out of control.
And we're not all Will Smith, so we're
Yeah,
fucked.
exactly. We're screwed. I guess the only thing that really gets me like freaked out and jazzed up in that realm is the simulation theory stuff. But not to go too far down
Ooh,
conspiracy
no,
theory rabbit holes.
let's.
Um, the but yeah, so I guess AI is, I don't know. I don't know enough to be worried.
Yeah.
The simulation theory gets me jazzed up though, because I forget who it was, but I was listening to someone talk about it, and the way they explained it was that humanity's getting rapidly more progressed as far as technology. It makes sense that we would want to model the way history has gone to see, like, if we changed one variable, what would occur. And it makes sense that at some point we'll have a computer strong enough to do that. And when we do, we'll be able to just click a button and it'll just happen. So all of history will be simulated up to that point. And that'll happen over and over and over again, right? Let's say 1,000,000 times, because you can just by the click of a button. So that, my understanding, the thing that freaks me out is that gives us a 1 in 1,000,000 chance that we're not currently living in the middle of one of those simulations. And also, to say that we're not living in one of those simulations means that we're like the first run through of all of this. It's the first attempt, which seems a little bold.
You think this could
So
all
I
be a
don't know.
simulation? Sometimes I experience moments in life where life doesn't even feel real to me. Like I look around and I'm like, this is fucking bananas. I was like, there's a fireball, perfect distance. Like
Yeah.
everything about life, everything for there to be life is perfect. And I just look around and I'm like, this is just, and we're worried about like making money and who becomes, president. And it's like,
Yeah.
we're in infinity. It's,
Yeah.
and I look around and I honestly feel like sometimes life feels like, to use the word simulation, but it just seems, it almost doesn't even feel real sometimes to me. Like life feels like a video game or something like that. It's very weird, but
Yeah.
I don't think that I don't think we're in a simulation. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, the argument against it that kind of like saved me from going down the spiral of chaos, is that if you were in a simulation, in theory, you would think for it to be a proper simulation, you would want to make sure that no one figured out that it was a simulation
But
within the simulation. And the fact that there are people arguing that it is a simulation gives me hope that maybe it's not.
but maybe we're just becoming more cognizant of the fact that there is a potential that it is a simulation, and we're like
Oh, don't do this to me, Trevor.
we're like artificial intelligence ourselves, and we're continuously evolving and becoming smarter, and we're starting to become
Oh
a bit
man.
more sentient of the idea that maybe this is a simulation.
We're all part of the Matrix, dude.
Well, this is actually a great little transition for one more topic that I wanted to talk with you. Now, am I correct in saying that are you a Christian, or you were raised in a Christian family, right?
Yes, yeah. Raised in a Christian community, I think would be a better way to put it. My parents would definitely identify as Christian, but never really went to church. I kind of did all the way growing up. The high school and middle school I went to was a private school that was a classical Christian education. So got a lot of Christian impact there. Have since currently I play at a few churches, guitar at a few churches and whatnot. So I'm at church 2 or 3 times a month. Would probably identify as a Christian. Yeah, I think it's probably the best way to put it.
Okay, so moving on from there, do you? I wanted to talk to you about the idea of theistic evolution,
Mhm.
and for me, this is if I'm being completely honest with you, I don't know where I stand on this because I was raised in a family where you look at the Bible in a literal manner, and then obviously as you get a bit older, you start to think a bit. You start to question things and you start to look at things, and you become more of an individual. And so I do believe in God, and I do believe that, as I stated earlier, everything is so perfect for life that it seems to be created clear. I mean, that's just it's it seems so obvious when you kind of just think about it in that regard. It's like, yeah, here we are, obviously. And I have a hard time with the idea of atheistic evolution and how nothing created everything, because what is nothing, because right in front of me here is time, space, matter, particles, atoms, all this stuff. And they suggest, scientists suggest that nothing created everything. And I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. So moving forward, a lot of people, a lot of Christians view the Bible in a very literal manner, and my family would as well. And so that's the environment that I've grown up in. But then I start listening to all these guys talking about evolution, and I hear a lot about that. And their arguments sound very, very convincing, and it makes sense in my eyes. But I still do believe that. So I guess what I'm getting at, if I can fucking spit this out, is that I'm intrigued by the idea of theistic evolution being God's way of bringing about reality itself. And I've heard a lot of people talk about that. And like I said, I don't necessarily know where I stand, if I believe in that, or what I believe in, which is kind of a problem because it's like my fundamental worldview. I don't necessarily know what I believe. And now you believe in evolution, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so um, do you look at the Bible in a literary sense, or do you believe that some of it is a bit more metaphorical, or
Um, Generally speaking, I tend to lean away from a literal interpretation of the Bible. I the immediate thing that popped into my mind when you started asking about theistic evolution is there's a book called The Language of God that a guy named Francis Collins wrote. That is crazy dense and kind of brutal to try to get through, but he makes a really not succinct. He makes a very lengthy, drawn out argument, but a very good argument and a very well informed argument about why evolution can and probably should coexist with God. That for anyone that's interested in this topic, I would really, really recommend reading.
what was that called?
Um, it was called The Language of God
Okay.
by a guy named Francis Collins. And yeah, set aside a month and a half. It's a really scholarly, really dense book and difficult to wade through. But if you're interested in the topic, well worth a read. Because he effectively makes the argument that it is more likely that evolution was dictated by God than the other way around. Um, the As far as an interpretation of the Bible, I tend to think that most of the Bible was not intended to be taken literally outside of the Gospels and the things that are clearly historical. So, for instance, like we know that there actually was a King Solomon. We know um, from things that have been found that there was a man named Jesus who was crucified when he was 35. And there are writings of other people during that time that 3 days after he died, the tomb was empty. Um, so things like that, I think, definitely can be taken literally. Um, but I do think that a lot of the stories in the Bible are kind of these archetypical stories that are intended to teach something, and maybe have some literal truth in them. But to say, like, I guess the common example, but I'll fall into the trap of using it, is that God created the world in 7 days, and that's maybe not entirely true. Um, maybe we should be looking at that more of an archetype of, we're saying 7 days because the order that things were created in was important, as opposed to the fact that it only took one day, one time around the sun. Not time around the sun, because that's a year, right? One rotation of the
Yes.
rotation of the planet.
Yep.
For that to occur. And Jordan Peterson has a really, really fantastic lecture series that is not overly political, because I know he can get pretty political and pretty like right wing and everything, but he has a really fantastic lecture series that's not very political, on the biblical stories and kind of how we can take some of these archetypical ideas out of them and look at them and be like, maybe like a flood probably really did happen, but more importantly, what is that flood representing, and kind of what can we take from it?
Yeah, Jordan Peterson I'm in awe of Jordan Peterson. I'm in awe of his ability to articulate his thoughts. I'm in awe of the fact of what he's accomplished, and the type of person that he's become, and how prominent and famous he is. He's like the most famous intellectual on the planet. And and I've listened to some of his lecture series on the Bible. I've listened to a lot of his lecture series, um, not on the Bible, because he has so many lectures out. I've listened to a lot of his college courses and classes and stuff like that online. Yeah, I would recommend it to like any person who's trying to figure out life or have a little bit of a better understanding of it. It's like, go watch Jordan Peterson, because the man's been thinking about it for the last 50 years straight.
Yeah, yeah, solid. And I mean, I guess the thing, and kind of piggybacking off of that, I wanted to make sure and say while we were here, is that there's a lot of scarecrowing in um, the world right now, where someone will lean right, so they seek out people like Jordan Peterson, who's a really smart, well-informed voice on the right, but they don't do the same for the left, or vice versa. And I think it's really important to seek out people like Jordan Peterson, who provide a really smart argument and well thought out argument for what they believe. Sam Harris is a really good person on the other side of the spectrum to get like a really smart, well thought out argument for atheism or for liberal beliefs or whatever. And I think it's really important to kind of seek those out, so you're comparing apples to apples. You're comparing the strong to the strong, as opposed to the strong to the weak, right?
Yeah. Sam Harris is definitely. I actually haven't listened to any of his stuff, but I of course know of him. He's probably the most famous atheist on the planet, I would say. But he's a serious intellect as well. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's just important for all of us to just listen to really smart people who know what, like
yeah,
people who have had more life experience. I mean, we can all learn stuff from guys like Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson, and I mean, there's a reason that so many people are gravitating towards them, because they are, so to speak, they're ahead of you and me in life, and in experiences, and being able to articulate all the different conclusions that they've come to. And so yeah, I think anyone could get so much out of those guys. That's why they're so successful. Like their shows are so successful and so popular.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, well, listen, dude, those are the topics that I wanted to cover with you. Um, I think you had a lot. I knew that you would have a lot of great talking points on all those things, and I think you did a fantastic job discussing all of them with me. That was a good job.
Sweet, buddy. No, I really appreciate you having me.
Yeah, yeah. Tell everybody one more time where they can find you and where they can find your band and any other information that you need the listeners to hear.
Yeah, for sure. I think the first thing before I go into like my band stuff, just kind of thinking back on what we've said and wanting to like circle back and make sure that um, the message I guess that I wanted to get across is accurate to how I feel. I just want to kind of make sure because I feel like I talked a lot about how I haven't loved the response to what happened with George Floyd, and just want to kind of, I think we're all on the same page here. Don't think anyone's thinking otherwise, but just to make sure, kind of want to circle back and reinforce that it really truly was a tragedy, and I think we have a real opportunity as a country right now to assess how we value individuals and how we value interactions, um, and change that to form a little bit better of a society. So um, I think the push there would be to use that tragedy as a method to make things better instead of staying in this place of everything screwed, so it's all chaos. So that's the first thing. I just want to make sure and circle back and cover that. And then the other thing is over the last month or two, there's a really fantastic organization called All Sides, and I believe the website is allsides.org, but it might be a .com. But they do a really fantastic job of, they'll give you 3 or 4 headlines for the day, and then they'll show link to an article from the right and how they're covering it from the left and how they're covering it from the middle and how they're covering it. And as the insanity that is, I would say safely, definitely going to take place over the next week or two with all of the election stuff comes out, I would really encourage people to find a resource like that so that you can see what people that believe opposite you are seeing.
That's a good
So I
skill.
guess those are the two.
Yeah, that's a good skill to have. Being able to, that's like one of the most valuable skills to have. It's like the ability to see other people's points and perspectives, and then if you disagree with them well.
Yeah, it's critical, really. So yeah, allsides.org. I hope it's a .org. It might be a .com though.
.net,
.net,
.biz.
.co.
Yeah, yeah, right.
There you go.
Oh shit.
But yeah, so I guess those are the two parting thoughts that I wanted to kind of leave people with, and then just to push, I guess, for social media stuff. I'm here, I guess, in capacity of the band. I do not reflect the beliefs of the band or any of its affiliates.
Well, dude, just give your personal, give your
but-
personal too. Give all your personal and your band stuff.
Yeah. So personal stuff is all Zach Ward. I said this earlier, but I'm not a business, so it's all just like personal Facebook and Instagram stuff. But if you have any comments or whatnot, any hate mail for what we've said or talked about, then feel free to send me a message. I'll just block you.
Yeah.
But then also as the band is called Of the Orchard, and we're a millennial pop rock group, and just had an album come out called We'll Be Okay Tomorrow, and available wherever you normally like to listen to music. And we have a website, oftheorchard.com. There's a little sign up for an email list there. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you coming on the air. I had a great time, and yeah, man, I wish you well, and I love you, brother. Thank you.
You as well. Wonderful to catch up with you, buddy.
Absolutely, man. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
All right, man. Zach Ward, everybody.